events. With me in the studio is my colleague Wang Tongxuan. Over in our digital newsroom is CGTN social media editor Marco Shan. We'll start with Marco. What do you have for us today?
And thank you, Pandong. And hello, everyone. This is Marco live from the CGTN digital newsroom. Although we are in the final days of this year's two sessions coverage, there's still a lot of amazing content for you to find out on CGTN's website, app, and social media platform. First of all, we have our business interview series, Boss Talk. In today's episode, we interview the China president of American company Rockwell Automation, one of the world's largest industrial automation and information companies. Later on, don't miss out our vlog series, where our reporters tell us about what's going on here in China through their own personal experience. First, we have a day of fun with a post-90s deputy, and then what is it really like for journalists covering political events in China? And last but not least, CGTN's host Zhou Yue will share his views on China's economic growth in a short video titled From Fast to Fun. Now, let's head to the TV studio for more exciting stories. Hello, Tongxuan, please tell us more.
Thank you, Marco. And there are some interesting stories filed by our reporters that you don't want to miss on our channel in the next 24 hours. In today's episode of CGTN Listens, we take you a look at China's aim to leave no one behind in its ambitious poverty alleviation drive. Our reporters traveled to Liangshan Autonomous Prefecture in southwestern China's Sichuan province, one of the most impoverished regions in the country, to find out how local officials and frontline workers are helping on their end. So what's been achieved so far in fighting the battle against the poverty, and what are the most effective measures being taken to target the remaining rural areas? Find that answer from our anchor Mike Water on CGTN Observes. And coming up tomorrow, NPC deputies will vote on the closely watched foreign investment law and other legislative measures. Chairman of the Standing Committee Li Zhanshu will also speak to conclude the NPC session. And as a yearly tradition, Premier Li Keqiang will meet the press and take questions from both home and abroad at around 10:30 a.m. Beijing time. So stay tuned to CGTN as we will bring you the live coverage of the whole event. But for now, Pandong, back to you.
Thank you very much, Tongxuan, for that update. And now, Marco, tell us what other specials do you have for us?
All right, thank you, Pandong. And for today's highlight report, I'd like to show you how people from around the world are contributing to China's development. Foreign talent have played an important role in China's economic success and have also diversified the Chinese talent pool. From March 2018, China began to issue talent visas for foreigners. Those who work in China and fulfill the market demand for high-tech, cutting-edge, sophisticated, and rare talents can apply for the talent visa or the R visa. The government has extended the duration of their stay, and their visa process has been shortened too. Qualified foreigners can be issued a 5 or 10-year R visa with multiple entries and can stay up to 180 days during each visit. So do check out the video for more information. Now it's back to the TV studio for more.
Thanks, Marco. Experts weigh in on what the new foreign investment law could mean for the country and the overseas investors. Zhang Yichen, CEO of CITIC Capital, told our reporter Tian Wei he believes that the move is a big step forward in IP protection, as it will forbid forced technology transfer. The existing legal document on foreign investment was one of the first laws the country put in place after opening up in 1979 in order to ensure foreign investors could come to China and set up joint ventures. Zhang said the Chinese economy is going to be more market-driven than before, and the government is committed to the negative list, which would specify only a few sectors not open to foreign investment. This is different from the current law, which requires specific approvals. Zhang believes more sectors will be open completely to foreign capital in the future. The National People's Congress is expected to vote on the draft of foreign investment law on Friday. If approved, it would ban forced technology transfer and further extend IP protection. The law would affect the 950,000 enterprises that have been set up here in China in the last 4 decades, with investment totaling more than $2 trillion. As always, you can follow CGTN on TV and our social media platform or mobile app for more information. Pandong, back to you.
Thank you very much, Tongxuan. Now, Marco, let me tell you, we're joined now in the studio by Associate Professor Zhang Chuanhong from China Agricultural University. I know you've been following online users' activities quite closely. What are frequently asked questions today?
All right, thanks to Pandong and to Professor Zhang. So my first question is, China has successfully lifted millions of people out of poverty. And but how do you think that model can be adopted to help other countries, especially developing countries, for their poverty alleviation scheme? Thank you.
Right, Professor?
Thank you. That's a good question. You know, first I think, how do you define China model? This is a very big word, I think, you know.
What about experience? Let's trickle it down to experience.
I think, you know, 3 salient features should be highlighted in terms of poverty reduction when we talk about China's experiences. The first one, Chinese poverty reduction experiences is a kind of government-led approach. Government has strong capacity to mobilize all kinds of resources. That's the first point. The second, even it is government-led approach, but it is not a traditional top-down approach. And we can see this kind of approach to the largest extent mobilizes the widest social participation. And the third one is that we can see China's approach is shares a lot of similarities with other developing countries, especially we emphasize the core of agriculture development. And this kind of approach aroused worldwide interest, especially, you know, if we have food security, and it will contribute a lot to poverty reduction. We can see the effect of agriculture growth to poverty reduction is highly recommended, even by some world organizations. I think in some degree, we can say China's experiences is relevant to other developing countries. However, we need to be cautious when we talk about China's model. If we think about some other developing countries, like African countries, we see the capacity of the government, it cannot be comparable with China's. And also the smallholder farmers. Of course, we also have a lot of smallholder farmers, but we have long experiences of farming. Our technology, China's farmers' experiences have been embedded in our culture. And for some countries, especially in African countries, their way of farming is very different. And then that created some space for us to introduce our experiences to them. However, we need to be cautious, as I said, you know, which approach is most suitable to them, it's up to them. They should
So we can say there is no universal pattern.
Yeah,
each country should find its own approach from their political and socio-economic conditions, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Professor. And Marco, any more questions?
I got a second one, and the second one is about China itself. So how can China balance its urban and rural development? Because urbanization means more people moving out from countryside to the cities, and how does that help the rural development process? Thank you.
Professor, I think in the context of poverty alleviation, this has more to do with social mobility, right?
Yes, I think urbanization process in China is very different from the Western world. If we look at England, you know, when they had this kind of urbanization process, the land enclosure caused a lot of social problems. China's urbanization process is incremental, is gradual, I think. So it is different. And when we talk about urbanization today, and we need to notice the objective of rural urbanization is for rural development. They are not contradictory to each other. And the urbanization process is to shorten the rural-urban divide, to shorten the income gap between the urban residents and rural residents. And also another point is the urbanization process cannot reduce the importance of agriculture, especially for our food security issues. And if we look at that way, we can see in China the conflict between urbanization and rural development is secured at the policy level. And on the other side, we sometimes, commercial interest in rural areas cannot be stopped to some extent, even we have strong policy implementation there. How to ensure the rural stakeholders, especially rural poor's interest during this kind of urbanization process is a challenge for us. I think the efforts made by our government to ensure the land reform, even you leave the rural area, you can still have the holding right of this land, is very important for us to reduce the possibility of producing or generating rural poor during the urbanization process.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Zhang Chunhong from China Agricultural University. And also many thanks to my colleagues Wang Tongxuan in the studio and Marco Shan in our digital newsroom. Global Watch and CGTN's new media team will continue bringing you the latest on China's annual political season. We'll have more stories on the 2 sessions after a short break, but our live coverage, as always, will be available on the CGTN app. Don't miss out on that. So let's move to the latest episode of our special series CGTN Observes, where anchors share their thoughts on important issues related